Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of EdTech Connect, Innovators in Conversation. Today, we are joined by the President and Chief Operating Officer, Sam from Jenzabar, and our very own magician, Harish, Chief Data Officer. How are you guys doing today?
Wonderful. How do I get a title like Chief Magician?
Chief Magician. I mean, hey, you're welcome to come into our office, do a marketing video, and then you can get an honorary magician title.
All right, fair enough.
Absolutely.
Harish is very familiar with our spontaneous videos in office during his times to New York. But awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Everyone on our channel knows that we start our conversations with a very silly icebreaker. So based on talking around data and higher education today, my question to both of you is, if you were a school subject, what school subject would you be and why? All right, I'm going to turn it to Harish first because I gave him a hint before we started.
If I were a school student, I would be mathematics because I think one is I loved it. I know a lot of people hate it, but I think that's what drove me towards engineering and later on towards AI and data. But yeah, I kind of like the absolute nature of it, of mathematics.
Awesome. Great. Sam?
So I'd say I'm history. And partially
History.
is because I like to look at history and then learn from it. And I think that if you look at history, right, if we all know the quote, if you don't learn from history, you're destined to repeat it. So I think history is a good thing. And I'm glad you let him go first because I was like, that's what I wanted to say, but I didn't know how to say it right.
No, that's okay. I think that was a great explanation. When you said history, I was like, I feel like he's going to mention the quote that if we don't study, it can repeat. And you did. So same wavelength. That's how you know it's going to be a good conversation when we're on the same wavelength already in the icebreaker. Great. Well, getting into our full topic now, since we're going to talk all about data and higher education usage and adoption, we're going to jump into our first question, which is, how are leading institutions shifting from reactive reporting to more predictive, insight-driven decision-making, which is a very hot topic in the market right now. So, Sam, would you like to take it off first?
Sure. I mean, I think that, and I think we're seeing for the first time in higher education is that data is becoming such a center focus for campuses as they really need to learn from, again, to use the history thing, to learn from the back, to collect their data, to centralize it, and then to make the right decisions going forward. I mean, they're in unprecedented times of pressure right now, especially financially, especially the smaller institutions. So I think that, cabinets are changing the way they make decisions, really enabling themselves to look at data, try to use data to predict what's going to happen, and then act on that prediction. So I think it's a whole new era for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Harish?
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Sam said. So, see, the importance of data in the world of AI is because AI feeds on data. I mean, now everyone knows that. And if you really want to make any meaningful use of AI, whether it is personalizing it for students or predictive decision making, you need the right data infrastructure, right? Without that, you really can't do much. Also, like if you think about 10-15 years back, or for past 15-20 years, everyone is used to building dashboards. But dashboards is static information from the past. But if you want to use, predictive analytics, if you want to predict something, let's say drop-off rate or retention rate, you need right kind of data infrastructure. So it's not a one-time effort. It is repeatability of those kind of insights, month over month, week over week, that feeds into your decision making. And that's why I think that's what institutes are looking for and kind of looking at data in that way.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you were saying, Sam, because in one of our EdTech on the Street episodes with Harish, we were talking about really, as you mentioned, how smaller institutions have to make more critical decisions as to what new tools they can adopt, what money they have allocated to trying new tools, software, etc. Why is it so important now that they focus some of that funding maybe towards data versus some other tools?
Well, there's a couple of things, and to jump on what Harish said was, especially when you're looking at AI, the power of AI is allowing people to be able to ask questions of data without being necessarily SQL experts or being able to have query tools. And it's putting that, that natural language to SQL ability into the systems. Smaller institutions, have gotten to the point that, if you look at presidents and you look at CFOs, they're coming in from a different background. A lot of them are coming in with business background or from the other side of the house versus academic. So they're more focused on the data. And I think that people, the ability to be able to evaluate where you are, to look at where you're going, and to be able to have tools that you can use to help you make those proper decisions. I mean, these schools are, for the first time, really looking at ROI. ROI used to be a 3-letter word in higher education. It was never asked. And we find ourselves and our people are now almost having to always focus on presenting an ROI for their case, where we never had to do that before. I think that's one of the big changes.
Wow. So then what does that presentation look like then? Like because I know we always talk about metrics. We're trying to move away from vanity metrics. So then what do they need to show to demonstrate that there is ROI?
Well, and that's hard because some of the ROI is a soft ROI in institutions. We know that we're asking our IT people and our other people on campuses to do more with less, right? As their budgets are flat, costs are still going up. So I think using tools like AI, using data to make the right decisions is really more about being able to deliver more and not increase costs. And I think that that's where a lot of people are trying to focus on, because listen, we all know buying these systems, you're not going to be able to go out and get rid of people, right? You're going to have to train people to use the new stuff. It's hopefully that you'll be able to do more with what you have.
Mm-hmm. Right. Harish, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Nowadays, the ROI it has to be absolute. It can't just be a little bit here and there. And it's in the world of data and all this connected system. It is possible to nowadays connect and attribute ROI properly. Like, let's say if we are talking about for an institute, if you're talking about enrollment rate, from which channel enrollment is coming, it was never attributed in the past, but you can very clearly now attribute it to your search engine optimization is working or your ad marketing is working. So it's a lot of financial decisions are now based off data, like where should you be spending more to improve student enrollment, so to speak. So as Sam said, ROI is now being looked upon by everyone.
Yeah. And then because we already started mentioning AI, it's hard to not have a conversation without AI coming in the chat. We skipped ahead to one of my next questions, which is, what does AI readiness really mean for higher education today?
Well, I think when you look at it is trying to find what makes sense to help deliver your mission. As we know, the hype cycle for AI is still feverish, and institutions have to muddle their way through and try to figure out what is the best way to use it and what's going to help them achieve their mission. And then you have to get into governance. I mean, governance is a scary thing, especially when you talk about an institution of higher education. How many people touch data? How many people are submitting data or submitting reports, different things, not just on the administrative side, but on academic. And, I think that AI is changing the landscape, but I also caution us not to be too scared of it. If you think about it, when first AI came out, I did a presentation and I showed the old political cartoons when calculators came out and how it was going to ruin everybody's mind, where Google was going to destroy education and learning. And now AI is just another tool that can be used to help supplement and properly govern. It'll be a great tool for all of us.
Yeah. Go ahead, Harish.
See, when we talk about AI readiness, there are 2-3 different aspects to it. One is the policy, like guardrails and everything, like having clear policies around where AI use is permitted, it's not permitted, data privacy related regulations. So having that policy clear, documented, so that all different departments and organizations can use that policy as a pillar and then build the required AI systems that they need to build. Otherwise, it will always be stuck in kind of analysis paralysis, kind of a nightmare specifically for institutions, right? So that's one aspect to it. And then the second aspect is infrastructure, having the right kind of AI infrastructure, which is more related to your data pipelines are in place. You can put trust in your data pipelines, you can put trust in your data. And because see, the outcome of all of that data, you will only trust that outcome if you know that the data is correct and accurate, right? So having that data infrastructure in place. And the third part I guess training your staff to be able to use that data, to be able to, even if it is natural language querying of data, like they should be able to know that they can query data and where do they go, what kind of questions they can ask, and how much trust they can put in the response. So I think these are the three different aspects. I think policy, infrastructure, and training, I think at least at this point in time, they are necessary.
Right.
I also think is to start with a project that you can see achievable goals for the institution. I think part of it is we get into these big hype cycles, and the world is expecting massive change tomorrow versus having small victories that lead towards the bigger challenge. I think that that's one of the big challenges that, especially higher ed, they're being shown visions of holographic professors speaking, but where is the power of it, right? It's in helping us with data and administrative at the beginning, and then
Yeah.
seeing how they adopt it later.
Yeah. Still getting lost a little bit in the vanity of what it could be, right? Holographic teachers versus actually what needs to happen first, and understanding, as you guys said, what AI really looks like in adoption for higher education and how it's going to be improving from that point. But I want to go back a step further because you guys talk about trust when it comes to AI. And I really want to focus now back towards what prevents the institutions from fully trusting their data and how can we fix that?
I mean, I think part of it is that there's so many disparate database systems on campus, and that's part of the challenge. Is where is the record of truth? Where is that being stored? And the system of truth is what needs to be driving where the AI data is coming from. I think the silos within institutions also is everybody trusts their own data, and they don't necessarily trust others. And so you get into that challenge of how are you going to get the data, trust the data, and then be able to make decisions on the data that the data and the outcomes that you're getting. And then it's got to take time, right? You've got to prove it and then make some decisions, and hopefully they turn out. And if they do, then you're going to trust the data more.
Harish, I feel like this is just what we've been talking about internally in terms of Ed Data Hub and that data unification. I'm looking at you. Let's hear it.
I kind of 100% echo what Sam said. We have been so many times in historically EdTech companies have tried to solve this whole disparate database problem, but I think this is when there is a real need and there is a real ROI to that effort, because data unification and is an effort, and it's not one time thing, because you will keep changing your systems, you will keep acquiring new tools and new products, you move from one LMS to the other, you have to still you'll have to rebuild those pipelines again. So it's not a one time thing. I think that realization and a constant continuous effort to ensure your data pipelines are current and accurate is I think what will build trust. We institutes need to get to a place where they do that investment, not one time, but have kind of data stewards, so to speak. I mean, it's nowadays a very common term in companies. Chief data officers has I'm one of them, but yeah, it's become a common role in a lot of places. So I think it's very very important that to trust the data, to trust the AI, that investment is made, where data unification efforts are put into place. uh, Products like a data hub are brought in, where all the data comes into one place and you have a single source of truth. And once you have trust in your data, you will also be able to trust the outcome that data gives you, the insights that it provides you. I think that's the most important thing. See, you can't trust your data if it is a black box, right?
Yeah.
If it is explainable, the lineage. Okay, if let us say you are talking about enrollment data, which marketing system or which system the data is coming from, how it has been validated. So if it is explainable, if the lineage can be found out very clearly, then I think the trust can be built on data.
Right.
I think even expand on that, Herschel, but it's like you talk about AI governance, and it goes back to like replacing data governance, right?
Yep.
But we used to preach that to institutions, back in the day, even with the disparate systems, is you got to have data governance, and AI is still going to only be as good as the data at the
Absolutely.
end of the day. I think you see one of the challenges we're also seeing with this is with the continuing emergence of more SaaS products and point solutions, where maybe it's not a centralized decision to somebody buying something, right? Where they go out and they get a system in enrollment or in housing, and it's kind of a single buy off. How do we, as an institution, how does institution make sure that that data is correct that goes into that system, it's collecting correctly, and it can be carried over to the main system of record?
Correct.
Because again, without that, the data is only as good. The decisions are only as good as the data.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys are going right towards my next question, where it's going to get more into the how of this. So really talking about now, since we talked about like data unification, data governance, AI governance, this is all great and all right. But then we could just say some things like this in terms, but how does the leadership teams align around the data, around AI to move faster and act clarity so that's actually driving outcomes or that ROI as we talked about earlier?
Which I've always been going first. I think you should go first this time.
Harish, this is you.
Do a little,
He
back
called
and
you
forth
out.
here.
Sure. So, I think most important thing that leadership teams should align on is outcomes. What outcomes do they want from their data initiatives or AI initiatives? Otherwise, always there will be disparate thoughts on what should be done. Should we do a chatbot, but to what end, right? Should we build a teacher assistant or a student assistant or enrollment assistant? But what are the outcomes you are trying to drive? And once leadership is aligned on the outcomes, that this is what we want to drive and this is what is important for us as an organization or as an institution, then all the initiatives can be aligned towards it. So that's the most important thing that leadership can do, which is align on what are the outcomes that we want to drive. And once you agree on that, then make 5 or 6 major decisions that align with those goals, with those outcomes related to data and AI. Like, what is it that we want to do towards achieving those goals? And as initially Sam suggested, start with a small project, nothing big, nothing major, but something that gives you a proof of concept or a pilot that, okay, this is achievable, whatever we are thinking is achievable. So start with a small project. I think those are like 3 steps that then they can follow, I guess.
Pilot.
I agree, and I think one of the big things too is it really needs to be driven from the top down. Leadership has to be buy-in; they have to be involved. Again, it's very easy to break into your silos after you leave a meeting and try to drive the agenda the way it works best for you. But I think unity and leadership, because today's world and making some of these decisions really also can build into a system of accountability that we haven't seen in higher education, because data is now being checked across the board. So I think that that's an important part of this as well. And again, top-down leadership, buying into it, being part of it, and driving really the change is what needs to happen.
So having people in the initial conversation, all of the key decision makers from day one is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. And driving it and making sure that you're aligning, and that leadership needs to make sure that the decisions are aligning with the school's mission and what the mission of the topics are. Because, Harish, you mentioned it's, is it academic? Is it enrollment data? Is it, what are we focused on? Is it the student? Is it the administration? Alumni? Right? What is the focus of it, and what is our number one focus? Because if we've seen anything, that's one of the struggles with IT in today's world is, IT budgets haven't gone up at the pace of the constituent requirements, right? Originally, they were administrative, and now it's administrative, and then it was administrative and student. Now it's administrative and alumni. Now it's administrative and communities. And so it just keeps expanding at a exponential rate of constituents, but the budgets aren't following that. And so I think the alignment of making sure that you're at least creating a project that has a singular focus on one of those constituents, so that you can expand afterwards to see if it's successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the emphasis on the mission because I feel sometimes we're still in the era, as you mentioned, it's like AI fever. So people are just doing it to say that we're using AI, but really what's the purpose of it? Are we actually driving real outcomes? Is it truly making a difference? And effectively using that funding from IT because just to throw AI on top of everything is not really useful at the end of the day.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's here to stay, that's for sure. So gotta make it effective. Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we're rounding to the end of our conversation. Before we close out today's episode, I want to turn it back to you guys one more time, a little spontaneously, for any final words of advice, tips, tricks, comments that you would like to leave with today's listeners.
I just think, higher education is really on the cusp of some great stuff. And, even though we have challenges that are coming across from all sides, I really think that, the use of technology and adapting technology to change the way we do things, to make us more proactive, to make us, we all hate to say it, but to run the institution more like a business. It doesn't mean that we take away from the general mission of educating and making people's lives better.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that efficiently like a business is something that we need to really focus on. And I think AI is what can do that for us.
Wow. I like it. All right. Running it somewhat like a business while still maintaining the integrity of higher education. This is good.
Yeah.
Harish, your turn.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, so I think aligning on the goals and outcomes that you are expecting from data is, I think, the single most important thing that they need to do first before even starting any data initiative or AI initiative, because that is what should drive your initiatives. And once there is clarity on what exactly are we expecting in terms of outcome, then aligning all the initiatives, all the investment towards achieving that goal is easier, right? uh, that's one. And the second, since it's about what they should do is focus on data, because I'm still seeing a lot of focus is on using AI within the institute, building chatbots, but
Yeah.
that really doesn't, to what end actually? Like, are you trying to solve a problem which, like, students are not getting support? To what end are you kind of building all of these initiatives? So I think it's very important that focus on data and infrastructure, because that is what will drive real outcomes.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good one. I know the chatbots. I've also seen a lot of higher education and K-12 are like just add a chatbot, and
Yeah.
that's still the initial want for them to do with AI usage. And as you guys are mentioning, like, is that the most effective, or are people just trying to use that as a way to not address the full underlying problem of their data collection, governance, and usage? So we won't get into that though today's discussion because that could be a whole other episode. But I want to thank you both for coming on to EdTech Connect, Innovators in Conversation. It was great talking with both of you and learning more about your experience and expertise in AI, data, and higher education. And to all of our listeners, I hope you learned something and are feeling a little bit more inspired to go back and check out your data governance strategies and usage to help drive more effective outcomes and ROI. Be sure to check out the rest of our channels and remember to stay curious. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.